All right, let's talk about moving to the cloud. It's not just about packing up your digital boxes and hoping they survive the trip. Nope, it's about architecting a brand new, way smarter home for all your applications. And just like any good home, before you can even think about moving in, you gotta have an absolutely rock-solid foundation. In the AWS world, we call that foundation a landing zone. And trust me, getting this piece right is probably the most important thing you're going to do. So let's get into it and break down exactly how to build one.
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at the nightmare scenario. What happens when you just jump in without a plan? Spoiler alert, it gets messy. Then we'll bring in the hero of our story, the landing zone philosophy. After that, we'll get into the real nuts and bolts, the core stuff like accounts, networking, and of course security. We'll even touch on how to put governance on autopilot. By the time we're done here, you'll have a solid blueprint to kick off your migration the right way.
Okay, let's dive right into that nightmare scenario I mentioned, the unplanned migration. This is really where the rubber meets the road, where you're facing this constant tug-of-war between total chaos and having some semblance of control. And honestly, this is what happens every single time when speed gets put ahead of strategy.
Really, you've got two ways you can go here. On one hand, there's what I call the lift and dump. Yeah, it feels fast, you're just shoveling everything over as quickly as possible. But that speed, it's going to cost you, big time. We're talking massive security holes, a rat's nest of infrastructure, and cloud bills that will make your jaw hit the floor. The other path, well, that's the architected migration. It's thoughtful, it's secure, it's designed to grow with you from day one.
Just picture this for a second. A company rushes into the cloud, all excited. A couple of months later, the finance team is in a panic, looking at a bill that's 3 times what they budgeted. The security folks just found out that sensitive customer data has been sitting wide open to the entire internet. And the developers, they're scared to touch anything because the whole system is so tangled, no one has any idea what will break if they make a change. That's not a strategy, right? That's just a full-blown disaster in the making.
So how in the world do you prevent that from happening to you? The answer is all about embracing the landing zone philosophy. And I love this analogy. You absolutely have to build the airport before you try to land the planes.
Okay, so what exactly is a landing zone? Well, first off, it's not a product you can just buy off a shelf. Think of it as a well-architected, pre-configured AWS environment. It's secure, it's built to scale, and most importantly, it's the standardized, safe starting block you hand over to your teams. That way, anything they build from that point forward automatically gets all the right security and governance baked in right from the start.
And this really gets to the heart of it. It's a total mindset shift. I mean, think about it. You would never, ever fly a fleet of jumbo jets toward an empty field and just hope you can pave a runway in the seconds before they need to land. That would be insane. The landing zone is you making the strategic decision to build those runways, the air traffic control tower, and the security fences first. It's how you guarantee that every single application that lands in your cloud environment does it safely, securely, and efficiently.
Okay, so we're on board with the philosophy. Now let's start digging into the actual architecture. How do we build this thing? The foundation of any solid landing zone really comes down to 2 main pillars. First, how you structure your AWS accounts, and second, how you design your network. This is the absolute bedrock of your entire cloud setup.
The very first and maybe most critical architectural decision you have to make is to go all in on a multi-account structure. Look, the old school way of doing things was to just throw everything, dev, test, prod, all of it, into one massive AWS account. We now know that's a recipe for disaster. The modern best practice is to use separate accounts to create isolation for your workloads, for your teams, and for your different environments. It's kind of like building a submarine with multiple watertight compartments.
So why go through all that trouble? Well, for one, it dramatically limits your blast radius. If, God forbid, one account gets compromised, the damage is contained right there. It can't spread to everything else. Another huge win is billing. You get crystal clear cost separation so you can see exactly what each team or project is spending. It also builds a hard wall between your precious production environments and your more experimental dev spaces. And honestly, it just makes managing governance and compliance way, way easier.
All right, so if your accounts are the different buildings in your cloud city, then the network is your entire road system. The highways, the streets, the intersections. The starting point for all this is your virtual private clouds, or VPCs. The best way to think about a VPC is that it's your own little private, fenced-off corner of the AWS cloud. Inside it, you control everything, the IP addresses, the routing, how it connects back to your on-prem data centers. You get this road system designed right once, at the beginning, and it makes sure all your data flows exactly where it's supposed to, securely, from then on.
Okay, we've got our buildings and our roads laid out. What's next? Well, now we need the security guards, the locked doors, and the surveillance cameras. This brings us to securing the perimeter, which is all about identity and logging. And really, it all comes down to answering two fundamental questions. One, who gets the keys to the kingdom? And two, who's watching what they do with those keys? The first piece of that puzzle is identity and access management, better known as IAM. And the most important word to remember here is centralized. We do not want user permissions scattered all over the place. A proper landing zone creates one central hub for managing identity. This is ground zero for answering that critical security question, who is allowed to do what? This is how you stop the chaos of giving everyone admin rights and creating a bunch of walking security risks. And when we talk about IAM, there are basically 3 golden rules you have to live by. Number 1, centralize your identity management. We just talked about that. Number 2, enforce the principle of least privilege. This one is so important. All it means is that any user or any application should only have the bare minimum permissions it needs to do its job, nothing more. And number 3, use strong authentication. For all intents and purposes, that means multi-factor authentication, or MFA, on everything.
So if IAM is like the bouncer at the door checking IDs, then security logging is the network of cameras watching everything that happens inside. A core part of your landing zone is making sure you capture, centralize, and secure all the logs from all your accounts in one safe place. Because when, not if, but when a security incident happens, those logs become your single source of truth. They're what you'll use to figure out exactly what went down, how it happened, and most importantly, how to make sure it never happens again.
So you've done all this hard work. You've built this beautiful, secure foundation. But how do you keep it that way? Especially when you've got hundreds of developers deploying code at the speed of light. You can't do it with manual reviews. That just doesn't scale. This is where automated governance comes in, using something we call guardrails. Think of it as putting the rules of the road on autopilot.
So what are guardrails? They're basically automated policies that enforce your company's rules across your entire environment. And they generally come in 2 main flavors. You've got preventive guardrails, which physically stop someone from doing something you don't want them to do. Then you have detective guardrails, which can't stop the action from happening, but they raise a big red flag the second it does. And it's the combination of these two that's so powerful. It lets your teams innovate and move fast, but within safe boundaries.
And what can these guardrails actually do? Well, pretty much anything you can think of. A preventative one could, say, completely block a developer from spinning up a server in a geographic region where your company doesn't operate. A detective one could constantly scan your environment and immediately alert you the second it finds a database that isn't encrypted. They can make sure every single resource gets tagged correctly for billing, or even block someone from creating a super insecure network rule. It's governance, but it's totally automated.
Okay, we've gone through the why and the what. Let's put it all together now into a final blueprint. Think of this as your minimum viable foundation. This is the stuff you absolutely must have in place before you even think about moving your first important application to the cloud.
So here it is, your migration-ready checklist. It's got 4 key steps. Step 1, establish your core accounts. And a minimum, that means separate accounts for security, logging, and any shared services. Step 2, define your baseline network. Get your main VPCs, your subnets, and your connectivity back to your data center all configured. Step 3, configure centralized identity. Get your primary IAM roles and policies built out. And finally, Step 4, deploy foundational guardrails. Roll out those absolutely critical preventive and detective controls. You check those 4 boxes, and you are officially ready to start migrating with confidence.
You know, at the end of the day, a landing zone isn't about making things more complicated. It's actually about removing complexity down the road. It's about building that stable, secure, well-governed foundation that lets your teams be creative, to innovate, and to do it all safely and at scale. This is the real difference between just moving to the cloud and actually building your company's future in the cloud. So once you have that amazing foundation in place, there's really only one question left to ask. What are you going to build on it?